Hello grade 6, welcome to the Elements of Art. Today we're going to illustrate each of the 7 elements of art. You need to choose a subject matter and then very carefully divide your page up in your sketchbook into 8 sections. So you need to find the middle and draw a straight line, and then you're going to divide the other way to create 8 even sections. In each of those sections you're going to illustrate one of the 7 elements of art. So here I'm starting and I'm using line. So my subject matter is flowers or a flower, and in each of the boxes I'm going to use a flower for my subject matter, but I'm going to demonstrate different elements of art. So first I'm using line, wiggly lines, straight lines, all sorts of different lines. I'm going to add detail with more lines. Now I'm moving on to my second one. This one is also a flower, different type of flower, but for this one I'm using value. Value is using darkness and light, shading, to create a little bit of a 3D element into your work. You can use any type of cross-hatching or different ways to create areas of shadow. So the next one I'm doing here is shape. I'm using shapes to create a flower. I'm using a lot of geometric shapes, but you can also use organic shapes. I'm using different size shapes. So now I'm on to my next one. This one is space. Space does not mean outer space. It means the relationship between objects in your image. So I'm trying to show that some things are close and some things are further away. And I'm using a lot of different flowers to do this. I'm going to come back later and add more details, but I'm going to start by just putting the basics into each of my sections. So now I'm on to texture. There are lots of different ways you might want to do texture, but I just looked around and I found this textured crepe paper. So I'm cutting it into different shapes and sticking it down to create a flower. So I've got, for this box, I've got 2 different types of paper that I'm using. And I'm just lining it up before I stick anything down. I'm lining it up carefully. Doesn't really matter if it overlaps the box a little bit. So here's my second piece of paper. This is just a brown wrapping paper, and I'm going to add that into just to add 2 different types of texture. Now with texture you get real texture where you can actually feel the texture, and implied texture where it just looks like you could feel the texture. So for this one I'm going to stick it down with some Pritt stick, and then once I've got everything in place I'm going to add a few more details with my pen to create some implied texture as well as the real texture. Try and stick everything down as neatly as you can. Don't get any glue around the edges. So, on to a little bit more implied texture. And then, I'm adding it with pen now, just to make it show up a little bit more, just using some lines. So you can see that some of these boxes, they don't just use one of the elements of art. In fact, it's very difficult to only use one, but I want you to have emphasis on one in each of the different boxes we created. So now I'm on to my form. Form is a little bit like shape, but shape is 2-dimensional and form is 3-dimensional. So I'm drawing some three-dimensional shapes or forms and putting them into a design that looks a bit like a flower. Now here are all my elements of art. Just checking that I've got everything. There's just one missing. So I'm on to my final one, which, even though I'm drawing with lines and creating shapes, this one is going to be mainly about colour. So I'm going to add some colour. I've got some coloured pencils here. I'm just going to make this one stand out from the others by being the most colourful. Think about which colours work nicely together. Just create your design that way. This is again a flower, a couple of different types of flower. So when you've got them down, you can go in and add more details until you've got it looking exactly how you want it to look. Keep going until there it is, the 7 elements of art.